Hi everyone, this is Janice. The topic of my project is a multiple case study of stakeholders' views on the use of ICT in Hong Kong kindergartens. Here is the overview of my presentation. Firstly, I will give you a brief introduction on this topic, followed by literature review and research questions. And then I will talk about the methods and data analysis. Lastly, limitations and timeline of this study. The amendments I've made are mainly on methods and data analysis. I've added in more details and hope the amendments made can make my study more doable and practical. Why am I interested in this topic? First of all, as an editor publishing teaching and learning material for ECE Setter, and I've been working on IT components for more than 10 years. ICT is highly relevant to my editorial work. And personally, I think that IT is of high potential for facilitating innovative enhancement of teaching and learning, even in kindergarten classrooms. It is worthy to explore best way of teaching and learning, especially when all the children now are digital natives. Before going to literature review, I would like to define what ICT is. Interestingly, the definition of ICT, information and communication technologies, varies a lot and is very diverse in the academic field. ICT in education actually covers a wide spectrum of activities involving technology. In this study, I'm going to choose a relatively diffuse and wild definition of ICT proposed by Uden and Wigan. That is, the different ways to support learning and teaching via all electronic media, including the internet, intranets, extranets, satellite broadcast, audio-video tape, interactive TV, and CD-ROM. There is a considerable body of researches showing that ICT benefits teaching and learning. ICT can enhance students' understanding of knowledge, especially the learning of early literacy and mathematical concepts. Children are provided with authentic learning opportunities to build up problem-solving and higher-order thinking skills. ICT also provides more chances for children to interact with each other, so that their social and collaborative skills can be improved as well. The access of ICT in classrooms also narrow the gap between those who come to schools with rich experience of using technology and those who come from technology-poor families. Despite the benefits of ICT proved by many researchers, the teachers were not very positive when ICT was first introduced in early years. In the 1980s, many kindergarten teachers were skeptical about its benefits and reluctant to integrate technology into their classrooms because they feared that such practice would result in inhibiting children's motor and social development, lessening active learning activities, and they also thought that IT-related activities were not age-appropriate. Later on, teachers became more neutral and positive on ICT in general, as they find that young children became more engaged in learning, more capable of collaborative work, and sustaining their attention and interest of learning for comparatively longer time. You can see that perspectives of ECE practitioners on ICT have been changing in the past decades, and the research focus has shifted from use it or not to how best to use it. As we all know, there's always a gap between belief and practice. Same thing happens when implementing ICT in kindergarten classrooms. As said early on, though more early childhood practitioners understood and recognized the significance and the promised benefit of implementing ICT in classrooms, but in practice, the use of ICT in kindergartens is still surprisingly low and less frequent compared to other educational settings. Why such conflicting fact happened? One of the key factors researchers find out is related to teachers' beliefs, attitude, and confidence towards such practice. Some recent researchers still find that early childhood practitioners are unwilling and reluctant to use new technologies. Even for teachers who are the digital natives have reservations about using technology in classrooms. Another frequently cited factor is teachers' IT competence. Many teachers come across technological barriers and do not know how to integrate the technology into existing curriculum effectively. They are incapable in employing innovative pedagogical methods of using technology as a developmentally appropriate and meaningful tool to deliver effective educational lessons. External factors are also critical for the implementation of ICT in early childhood education. For instance, the government policy, the support from educational settings, the accessibility of appropriate software and up-to-date technology, as well as the physical location of computers. It is also found that the nature of technology itself is also a factor. Nowadays, the technology has been changed and evolved at an unprecedentedly fast pace, which makes it difficult for teachers to grasp the new development, not to mention integrate it into teaching. Moreover, some teachers avoid using technology because they find that it is inherently unreliable and can break down at any time. This greatly hinders the smooth delivery of their lessons. Then, let's see some recent researches related to ICT in Hong Kong kindergartens. Lee interviewed 31 kindergarten principals and examined their beliefs about the use of ICT. He concluded that the problems in using ICT in local kindergartens are mainly due to several reasons listed below: the low level of teachers' ICT competence, the hardware and software problems, the lack of resources and technical support, and the low level of parents' ICT competence. Another research done by Han revealed that principals and teachers have different views regarding the use of ICT with young children. Most of the interviewed principals thought that providing sufficient computer hardware in the school is good enough to facilitate children's learning with technology, whereas teachers are hesitated with it as they don't know how to integrate ICT in the curriculum. Besides, time is too short to use computers in the overcrowded curriculum. Yun, Law and Wong investigated 18 primary and secondary schools in Hong Kong regarding the use of ICT in education. Though the settings are different, but the results align with the previous study done by Han. They found that using ICT in classrooms is strongly dependent on the school's leaders' vision and understanding of the role, and the impact of ICT in the curriculum, their goals and objectives for ICT integration. There are some research gaps with the previous researches I want to highlight here. Firstly, there are very limited researches regarding the use of ICT in local kindergartens. Secondly, not many researchers considering both intrinsic and extrinsic factors to explain the implementation of ICT. The connections between different factors have always been overlooked. Thirdly, previous findings did not involve much regarding the multi-level comparisons between different variables, such as practitioners' positions, the years of their teaching experience, and the types of schools. Based on these research gaps, I wrote out 2 research questions for further study. Question 1. What are kindergarten principals and teachers' perspectives on the use of ICT in Hong Kong context? Question 2. What are the factors that facilitate and hinder the integration of ICT in this sector? I hope that my study could partly fill up the insufficient relevant studies in ECE and enhance further large-scale empirical studies in the future. More importantly, I hope it can be a starting point to facilitate the understanding between different stakeholders regarding their perspectives towards ICT implementation, and also give some insights to policymakers, administrators, and practitioners to set up evidence-proof strategies and practices to facilitate the use of ICT in this sector. My study is going to adopt the multiple case studies method. 3 kindergartens were purposely selected. One of them is a full-day non-profit and voucher-eligible local kindergarten, and one is half-day non-profit and voucher-eligible local kindergarten, and the last one is a private independent local kindergarten. These 3 kindergartens should have adopted ICT in the curriculum to some extent, so that the teaching teams are not strangers in this aspect. In each kindergarten, the principal and 2 teachers, one with more than 10 years of teaching experience and one with less than 2 years, will be invited as participants and contribute to this study. Hope this can enable more meaningful comparisons and multi-level analysis between different variables, such as the types of kindergartens, the practitioners' positions in schools, and their teaching experience. I'm going to adopt a mixed method to collect data. There are 2 stages of data collection. At the first stage, The 9 participants will be asked to fill in a questionnaire, which attempts to get the school background, their professional background, and some basic understanding of their perspectives towards ICT in education. At the second stages, I will visit each kindergarten and conduct about a half-hour one-on-one interview with the principal and the 2 teachers separately. The interviews are audio taped to facilitate detailed transcription for further analysis. Here is the draft of the questionnaire. I will ask the participants to give me some background information such as their teaching experience and educational level and their recent ICT practices in the classrooms. Principals will also be asked the IT facilities in their schools. To address research question 1, I adapted questions from our previous research in my questionnaire in order to have a basic understanding of participants' general opinions towards the use of ICT. To address research question 2, I also adapted the list from above study to my questionnaire, as I find that it is quite comprehensive and detailed for further analysis and developing the content of interviews. I've made several amendments on the original list. In a word, I've aligned all items of 2 tables and Likert scale of the original one in order to facilitate easier comparison between the 2 in data analysis stage. Teachers will be asked to rate different factors facilitating and hindering the use of ICT in classrooms. The items can be classified as either intrinsic or extrinsic factors for further study. The data collected in this stage would help me develop more in-depth questions for the half-hour one-on-one interviews in the next stage. At the beginning of the one-on-one interview, I may ask the participants to elaborate more about their perspective towards ICT based on the data collected from the questionnaires. As this study greatly relies on participants' self-report data, I would like to introduce another method in order to get a higher inter-method reliability of my findings. I will show some green cards and red cards to the participants and ask them to pick 5 most influential factors which motivate and hinder them from using ICT in classrooms. The items on the cards are the same as those listed in the questionnaires. This is not only for verifying data collected from questionnaires, but also facilitating our discussions with some visual hints, especially when we touch the part of comparing the differences and similarities of the factors chosen under 2 circumstances. Here are some possible PSET questions I can think of. Data analysis. I will use SPSS to analyze the quantitative data collected from the questionnaires. For the data collected in the interviews, I will adopt inductive analysis here to condense and organize relatively extensive raw test data for structured and meaningful analysis later. With this data analysis approach, the qualitative data from the interviews will become more quantitative so that conclusions can be made easier. I may make use of the software and Vivo if needed. Due to limited time and resources, the sampling in this study is relatively small, and the findings may not be able to be generalized to a larger population. Furthermore, due to the nature of the topic, the findings mainly rely on participants' self-reported data, which undermine the reliability of the data source. Therefore, large-scale researches should be conducted in the future to contribute more. Here is the timeline I would like to follow to do my project. Thank you very much for your patience and looking forward to getting your valuable feedback. Bye bye.